Hi, hello. My name is Nida Ansari, and I'm the Director of Programs at Swechha, India. And today we're here as a part of our podcast series on green finance with green entrepreneurs, where we're conducting in-depth interviews as well as surveys with social and community-based businesses and enterprises to understand really, what are the key challenges that entrepreneurs, particularly those who have built in sustainability into their mandate, what are facing, and what are some of the enablers for their growth currently in India and also in Canada. And I'm here today with Malini Kochupillai. She's a co-founder of the Tenacious Bee Collective, a green entrepreneur who's working with local communities in Himachal Pradesh to bring back the traditional culture of beekeeping and apiculture, and how to make products from apiculture like honey a viable economic source for the local community. So, thank you so much, Malini, for coming on board the survey and research process, and now for coming on board the interview. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Nida. It's good to speak to you.
Yeah. So I thought, maybe we could start a little bit with, if you could tell me, what was your inspiration to co-found the Tenacious Bee Collective? How did this journey start? What was the real impetus?
So the impetus for me personally was to work with rural communities. I'd been working in Khirki for a while, and I'd been starting to do a lot of creative engagement with the community of Khirki through Khirki Voice, our bilingual publication. And I met Kunal, who is my business partner at a Khoj event actually. And Kunal is from Himachal, and at the time I remember I was looking for raw honey everywhere for my own personal health purposes, and I was quite unsatisfied with anything I found. I remember as a child we'd gotten some raw honey from a fresh harvest, and I was never able to find that kind of taste of honey in the market. So I casually asked Kunal to see if he could find me some raw honey from Himachal, because I know that the mountains have some amazing honey. And Kunal is completely driven, and when he has a new challenge, he just goes all out to see what's happening. So he went looking for this honey, and found out that there was not as many beekeepers as before in his district, and they preferred to leave their jobs and not let their children do this work. They spoke of bee populations dying. They spoke of just bad trade practices where traders will try to undercut them by not sourcing honey timely, because beekeepers across the country practice migratory beekeeping, commercial beekeepers, which means that they have to take their boxes to various places to harvest honey. That's the way they are able to recover their expenses. And traders will, try to undercut them, not buy from them, and, try to give them the lowest possible rates, leading to many people not even being able to recover their inputs. Beekeeping is quite cost intensive, and it's a very risky kind of practice, because you may not get, the flowers may not happen. Unseasonal rains can cause dramatic decrease in harvest. Many factors, environmental, local, many factors like that. In addition to, of course, bee populations dying through all kinds of diseases. So Kunal came back from this little expedition with a whole lot of questions and concerns. And he was like, look, we have to do something about this. And I was also like, look, we can do something about this if we start to look at it from a community angle, things like bee populations declining is a global phenomenon, and malpractices in trade, global phenomenon, and also poor agricultural practices specific to India, which is, we still use a lot of pesticides and insecticides in farming. And that's also affecting bee populations. Loss of biodiversity is affecting them. So it's impossible to tackle these things at a global, even state, as a national scale. But if you start to examine them from the scale of a community, at the scale of a village that you can walk around in or drive around in or be in, start to get familiar with, you can start to affect real change, I believe, which is why, the premise of Khirki Voice and Tenacious Bee ultimately remains that, if you start to try to affect change bottom up instead of top down, it's probably going to be more efficacious, and at least you will change the minds of few instead of everybody. I mean, it's a fool's task to imagine that you might change everybody's minds, but if you're able to change life for a small locality, show them a better way, I think that's half the battle won.
That's absolutely fantastic. So community driven change, and obviously of course part of the motivation was your own tilt towards sustainability, lifestyle and products, but a large part of it, like you shared, came from the fact that there is a gap, and there is a host of problems that in the community, which is posing which is going to be a big challenge for people. I mean, it's life threatening, in terms of their livelihood and the ecology as well.
I mean, it's stark in the rural context. It's stark because, I mean, in the cities we are detached from nature. We don't know, these notions of global warming to us are abstract, because at most we will have unseasonal rain, which is, in a context like Delhi, it's welcomed, right? But in the village, for me, having lived in Himachal for the last 2 years now, the cause of this climatic change is immediate. For the past many years, our farmers and local community members have been telling us that the rains happen too late, or too early. Crop is not able to either ripen, not able to be harvested on time. Lots of crop damage has been happening. So these things are real and omnipresent, in the village, and you can't deny them. They may not label it as climate change. They may not understand that is what it is, but it is what it is. You don't have dramatic climatic weather pattern changes year on year without some serious problems happening globally,
Absolutely. So, so with the community at the center, community-driven change at the center, share a little bit about with me about, just so what is the model of Tenacious Bee Collective, and what are your products? What's the model apart from honey, which is obvious to me? What are the products? What's the model? And how has sustainability been built into the products or the design, the A to Z of that?
So Tenacious Bee, I will say still is in its nascent stages. Our plans are very ambitious and lofty, perhaps, but what it is that when with the village that we have adopted, where we've been invited to work by the old Pradhan, we are developing as a model that can be adapted to pretty much any mountain rural context. And our intention is to start working in the Western Himalayas and then slowly see if it can be implemented in other contexts across the country. But the model is primarily developing circular sustainable economies around small scale beekeeping. And it works on two levels. One is with commercial beekeepers, and these beekeepers work with the Italian bee called the Apis mellifera. And because the Apis mellifera is a very industrious bee, she makes large quantities of honey. She's used all over the world for commercial beekeeping. She's the preferred bee. But she is not native to our land. She's not native to the mountains. So she's not as resilient. So when there's inclement weather, she will not go out. This is one of the main reasons Himachali beekeepers don't are not confident about keeping their bee boxes in higher reaches of the Himalaya. Which is where the best medicinal honey is. I mean, there's untouched land, forests, but because of the risk factors involved, inclement weather, all of these reasons, beekeepers don't keep their boxes. They will go to Punjab, Haryana, UP, Rajasthan, where there is assured flora in specific seasons. The second level is to develop at the community level, which is a village or panchayat level, a circular economy that relies on reviving traditional beekeeping practices with the indigenous bee, which is the Apis cerana in Himachal, as well as working with women in the community to develop allied products. So bees give us not only honey, they give us beeswax, they give us propolis, they give us royal jelly. And it is just a matter of understanding how you can harvest these ethically without harming the bees or without exploiting the bees. And then finding ways to add value to these in the village itself. Instead of trying to sell raw material, which is always a losing battle for farmers and beekeepers. You harvest your raw material and you add value to it within your village using the materials that can be grown within your village. So we're also promoting, we've leased a small a small land where we're doing permaculture practices, experimenting with traditional grains of the region, growing a lot of flowers and herbs, and encouraging people to grow as well. So there's this very special herb that grows in the monsoon called bhavri in our village. It doesn't grow in a lot of areas. It has a very unique taste and fragrance, and it grows only during the monsoon, very short window. So this year, last year we had a small harvest. We made some products out of that, some salt rubs with the herbs, and when we have larger production, maybe perhaps make oils and things. So try and create these, upvalue these raw materials that grow abundantly and can be grown abundantly. Encourage other farmers, because most farmers in Himachal have small scale land holdings. So instead of just doing the wheat or the rice per season, grow these herbs as well. We'll buy them from you, and we will use it in our products. So the idea is to create a range of products that utilize a little bit of all that the hive gives us, so that we're not extracting all the honey to try and make a profit. Because that's not, if you don't have healthy bees, ultimately this business flops, because bees are giving us everything, right? And so our model is primarily one of give and take, much like bees are. Bees don't just go and take nectar for themselves and forage pollen for themselves. They come back and do all these things in their hive and make amazing things, and they pollinate crops. It's like a beautiful symbiotic relationship with nature. And human beings over I don't know, eons. We have a prehistoric relationship with bees, right?
Right. So in a sense, sorry to cut you in, but sustainability for you, of course, your entire product is your raw materials. It's completely organic with the start to finish of it. And also what you're saying is, what you shared is, as an organization, as a group, you guys have developed and inculcated and started to practice larger organic farming principles, and to build that kind of a harmony with the land. Where you all are practicing apicultures, in terms of farming techniques and things like that, and working with the local community, right? Something I wanted to ask you before that is that, how, just in terms of, what is your business model like? And, because you spoke about give and take, and profits, and it's not all about the profits. But what about the profits? Is it
so the profits also, the last, part of the circular economy is also bringing all these products to market and bringing them to the right market. And a lot of our work is actually educating our audience, right? It's if you see our social media interactions, they're primarily driven by the story of the project. They're driven by the work that we're doing. They're driven by knowledge around bees and honey, and the health benefits of pure product, and the amazing things that bees do for humankind, for nature, for ecology, for everything. So it's like this, and the business model is selling products, and we are a premium product company. We are not trying to compete with the Daburs and the Patanjalis of the world. They have their business, and good for them. I'm bringing honey to people who want the real stuff. I'm bringing honey to people who understand that this is, it takes one bee her entire lifetime to make 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey, and then she's dead. And then it takes a colony a whole season to make 5 kilos, 10 kilos of honey. So it's not, and a beekeeper who takes care of these bees is not doing it for free. He cannot do it for free. He has a family to feed. He's traveling all over. So they need to understand that these are the costs involved in having this pure product. So if you can pay it, fine. If not, then that's fine. There's other things that are available to you. So it's trying to find, I can't even begin to say we are breaking even. We are very, very far from that. We've invested a lot of our initial capital in just building our infrastructures, in developing the networks we need to get this work done. Traveling, making sure that we are there for every harvest instead of just going to the nearest trader. to buy whatever honey they have. That's really cost intensive. Every year we make 2 or 3 precarious trips across the Himalaya to harvest this honey. So the idea is, in the long term, it balances out. You develop products that are deeply rooted in place. You create product lines that are unbeatable in quality, and are true to nature, true to where they come from, and are also giving back instead of just taking. Our economic model is flawed because it doesn't take into account the fact that the coal you're consuming was the result of 500 trees that were cut, and you're not adding the cost of those cut trees to your final product. So it's not the true cost of it. So I mean, you find ways, you find your market. That's what this year our focus is: finding the right market, becoming more visible to people who are looking for projects and products like this.
Right. And what has been your experience? Because we've heard from a lot of community enterprises who are sustainable that when it comes to customers, customers' choice, there's a tendency to choose the faster, cheaper option. Which in a marketplace, you get an array of fast, quick choices, which sometimes you choose over sustainable options. And so it's really nice to hear what you're sharing, that that this is a niche market, and of course it is very much niche across India right now, and that you're aware of that practical reality. And if I could maybe just ask that, what has helped you in building that customer base?
I mean, I'll be honest, we've only really started focusing, my business partner and I really started focusing on marketing and sales at some point last year. Before that, we were selling online. We have a website. We have our Instagram page that has gotten, that gets a lot of, not a lot of footfall, but a lot of good feedback. People are really engaged. People who know us, like our work, comment a lot on the quality of our products. Everybody who's tried our products love it. So a lot of it has been word of mouth for now. This year, we've engaged 2 people to help us with marketing and sales, and just reaching the right audiences, in different avenues. We're trying to stock in some good stores that appreciate this kind of work, and are looking for good quality products. We are collaborating with a wide range of professionals, because our work is not just honey and food. It's also skincare, it's also health, it's also ecology. So, we're speaking with people about installing beehives on roofs, helping them create bee sanctuaries on their properties. So many ideas are being explored, and many opportunities are coming. Everything is still very nascent. And we'll see the year what pans out and what doesn't. But to me, this variety of opportunities is super exciting, because then I know for a fact that just because we've established ourselves as somewhat of an authority on bees and beekeeping, we're not relying on just honey, and we are finding opportunities for all our beekeepers to gain from this, because if there's one thing they know, it's how to take care of their bees. And I can, if they're not relying on only honey for their income, then I can send them anywhere in the country to teach other people what they know. So this is the idea. And
that's really wonderful to hear how a large part of your work is also advocacy for traditional livelihoods and the rights of people who practice traditional livelihood that comes with it, which is a big, which is often sorely missing from most, marketing of most products and businesses. So that's really fantastic to hear. I think maybe I'd like to quickly maybe get into, you guys, like you shared, you are pretty nascent and you're still in that teething phase. And it's already fantastic where you are, when I read about your products. It'll be really nice to know from me, what have been some of your enablers, where does your support come from, and in what space, did your support come? What have been the biggest enablers for your growth in this journey?
Nida, can you give me just 1 second?
Yeah.
So enablers. So like I'd started to talk about it in the beginning. This project from the get-go has been a series of serendipities. And it started primarily from from a small angel investment from an old friend that reached out to me 20 years after I'd met him. I met him 20 years ago, and he reached out to me through the Khirki voice email. Said, I'm in town, let's meet up. And Kunal and I were in the thick of having discussions about what we can do with the bees and what we can do with communities in Himachal. And it was all up in the air because, I'm a poor artist, and Kunal is just at that point he was just working at a company in an IT company actually, and we were just like ideating and wanting to do a lot and just constantly talking about what can be done. And Anup, who is our angel investor, lands up for this wedding in the city and catches up with me after 20 years, and the whole weekend we just talk about this idea and what we're going to do, and I don't even know what he does now in his life. And at the end of that weekend we had seed funding, and it just happened. We had some money to start. We went on a recce trip. Then we spent the summer in Himachal trying to look for a village where we can start the work. Kunal spent longer time. I came back, and Kunal eventually found this village, not very far from where we had stationed ourselves. And the Pradhan had done beekeeping in her community, like a beekeeping training that is offered by the government in most rural villages. And it had not worked because the government does training and goes away. They don't care what happens afterwards. They've done their duty. They've marked their checklist. Like, itna ho gaya, quota bhar diya. But the bees were gone. Bees died. Nobody knew what to do with it. There was no hand holding. And we were like, look, this is our work. I mean, we want to come and make sure that it happens. So we're not going to do just a training and fuck off. We're going to sit there and work with the community and find ways to work around the hassles. And it won't be easy because we're not rich. We don't have a lot of money, but we can slowly chip away at it. And the Pradhan was supremely welcoming. It was a Pradhan called Kirna Devi then. She's no longer the Pradhan, but she was very encouraging. She gave us the use of her of a unused rest house space in the village right next to the Panchayat Ghar. We leased land just in front of it. So just a very central piece of land that anybody coming to the Panchayat Ghar can go and have a look at. And just slowly started there. So the enablers were, of course, our angel investor, the community, because you can't go and implant yourself and presume to be heard. You have to have and Kunal has been on the nose about this from the beginning. I've always been a little bit, skeptical about what the government can do for us. I don't have a lot of faith. I think it comes from being in Delhi. But Kunal always, and I think Himachalis a lot rely on the government for support. And in fact, in Himachal, government support systems are much more efficient than anywhere else in the country. You don't see the kind of abject poverty you see in perhaps UP and Bihar. Yeah. You see people are quite content in their lives, even if they don't have a lot of material possessions. Mm-hmm. So there's a kind of contentment in Himachal, and that kind of helped also. People came to learn because they were curious and not necessarily desperate for money. Yeah. We started. We engaged an NGO from Delhi to help us train the ladies in the village in the first round of making products with beeswax. And yeah, it started. It's just everything. Now it's history, I guess.
That's wonderful to hear. Yeah, and I know, and I noticed that even in the survey, like many others, actually in the survey that you were also a part of, almost 99% people, responded and spoke about their biggest support coming from their community and their family. So it's absolutely
and of course, support from family, absolutely. My mother's been unbelievably generous with support all through this, because the company is still not very far from being in the green, and she's always like, doesn't matter, you just do what you need to do, this is good work. So family is always there.
That's fantastic. And I want to move a little bit to another large area, which is which really I want to kind of deconstruct a little bit with you, because there are some patterns that are shared across the survey in terms of the challenges that are faced by green entrepreneurs. And very many people like yourself shared that there has been a severe dearth and challenge in accessing funding, technology support, communications and outreach, particularly for smaller, more nascent community enterprises, and so that, as well as a lack of government and institutional support, so what has been your experience in that, and how have you been able to navigate that?
Well, I've been able to navigate it just because of my mother and the support she's given us. But I will have to agree with all your other respondents in that I know that the government has launched a lot of schemes for startups. They've launched a lot of loan schemes or collateral, whatever. There's lots of schemes, but even for a company like us, with educated people, access to knowledge, knowledge of navigating in internet interfaces, we are not able to tap into it. There's always that you have to have a collateral of so much, and then you will get a matching loan for it. Or I'm like, if I have 1.5 crores in my bank, I don't need 1.5 crores from you. And I'm there's very little avenues for people who are working in the small scale. There's lots of things for tech. If you're doing an app or doing some finance related thing, there's so much money for you immediately. But if you're doing something grassroots, something on the ground, something that has real impact, your first question is always, how much have you sold? And look, like, I can't sell while also building this community. You can wait for the sales will happen. We got super lucky with our angel investor because he's not that type of investor. He has faith in the idea and he wants to see this idea grow, right? He's also doing some amazing work. He started a group called eSamudai that is working on community commerce, developing community commerce chats. So we got lucky with that. But the reality is, last year we considered raising another round of investment. Whoever we approached, and there wasn't a lot, agreed not a lot. We didn't talk to more than 4 or 5 people. But all of them are like, okay, give me 50% of your company and I will give you 10 lakh rupees. Or some ridiculous, equation like that, like, listen, what are you saying? Like, I'm not interested. Bye. So it's just this kind of, it's almost like people love the idea of doing something meaningful and that is good for the ecology and environment. But when it comes to putting their money where their mouth is, it's like, I'm sorry, it's not for me. Show me your numbers. And even advisors, people who I've spoken with about business advice, because neither Kunal nor I have business backgrounds. And both of us are navigating this as novices. And we get whatever knowledge we can from people we meet and we are able to engage with. But we have so much more to learn. I mean, I don't know anything about raising investment. I mean, it's an ocean that I've never navigated, and I don't want to. I'm not going to bend on my principles or my ethics just because I need this money. And that's something investors don't necessarily understand, and that's deeply problematic. There's very little avenues for small enterprises who are doing sincere work, but don't have the scales right now, may not even want to reach massive scales, but want to do a small impact project. We want to reach scale, but it has to happen organically. It can't be forced because that will lead to compromising quality, integrity. None of that is necessary if you have patience. So we are looking for patient investors. This is an alien term in this country. And let's see, maybe we'll find more angel investors.
Definitely it's a challenge because to be fair, you're also functioning in an atmosphere where from the age of the green revolution, cash crops and market trends will kind of determine what is grown, sold, produced, sourced, and therefore how much it's sold for and how often it's sold.
It's an insidious circle that is working against the workers. It's like working against everybody who's doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also just wanted to ask, Malini, because you also shared that, for example, you're not someone, you come from the artistic community, and from the entrepreneurial artistic community, and you don't come typically from a business background, for example, as many entrepreneurs don't, like yourself. I just wanted to understand that, as a co-founder, a woman leading a community business enterprise, are there other challenges or attitudes towards just women-led businesses that you may have faced based on your socio-political identity, or how has that experience been for you?
I feel like I've been quite sheltered from that because I'm working with Kunal, and Kunal handles a lot of the operations. I have to be super grateful for him for that. He gives me the space to just be and think and ideate and do the things that I enjoy. Of course, there's always conflict. There's always we have to do this, push yourself more. But I personally, I've not experienced any kind of prejudice, I would say. In the village, yeah, I mean, everybody's been super supportive. And I think it's also because right now we're quite small scale. Yeah. The people we meet with are people who are like-minded people, and are somehow in tune with the ideas we are talking about, right? So yeah, I mean, I think I've just kind of sheltered myself from all kinds of anything that might give me a rub that I don't want to engage right now. When I have to, I will. Yeah. And I will give them a piece of my mind. But I've been super lucky. Yeah. We've been super lucky like that.
Absolutely. And just because we were talking about the gaps and what's lacking in terms of just those enablers for the growth environment for community enterprises like yourselves. There are very many aspects, whether in technology, whether in funding, in institutional support, technical assistance, communication, trainings. There's very many aspects in which there's a lack that has been experienced, for community enterprises to really kind of be able to boost and augment their growth faster. But so just from your experience, what would be your key recommendations for the kind of support that should be built for community enterprises like yourself? And which stakeholders do you think should be leading that, whether it's the government or whether it's corporate groups or or other organizations? What would be your key recommendations on that?
I think there has to be a private interest in supporting social impact enterprises. The government is doing what it can do. I understand also that the government has to have a shit ton of checks and balances in place. There's too much opportunity of corruption and nepotism in the grant giving process. So they have to have their checks and balances. They're restrained in that. They are accountable to the public. They're restrained in what they can provide. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also a very Indian kind of mindset to constantly rely that the government will do this, the government will do that, the government has to do this for me. No, we all come from tremendous privilege. We're all very well educated. We have access to all the networks we need. It is just that there is a lack of a network of people willing to give money to social impact and not premise that on financial gains solely. They say, oh, very good social impact, aap NGO kyun nahi hai? Yeah, very good social impact, aapka earnings kitna hai? That can't be the premise. If you're looking to raise money for social enterprises, you have to seek people who are looking for patient investment opportunities. They're looking for investment that gives them not only financial returns, but also social impact returns. They have to be involved. I don't want an investor who's just going to come and give me money and then ask me for a report every 6 months and say, how much money did you make? I have no interest in that kind of investor. I want an investor who is invested in nature, like I'm invested in nature. I want my investor to understand, look, I'm answerable to the bees first and foremost. And if I don't take care of the bees, then they're not going to take care of me. It's just as simple as that. It's just that simple an equation. And if they're willing to take care of the bees with me, then I will do the best job I can do, Absolutely. And I will also make you money in return for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
It may not happen. It may not happen tomorrow. It'll happen maybe 5 years from now, but it'll happen. But you have to have that width of mind, and that's what we're sorely lacking. And it's the same in the cultural space as well. There are so few institutions that are supporting true, innovative or unique cultural work. Khoj is one of the few beacons, where is the exploration? It's all driven by market. Still, even after the pandemic, it's still driven by market. And that is saddening to me, really.
So what I'm hearing is that there obviously you're talking about attitudinal shifts in private investors, and also access to peer networks and smaller peer networks where collaborative opportunities can be explored.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Beyond.
I mean, that's how it's going. We've survived the last 3 years through collaboration, through this idea of exchange instead of monetary benefit, through this idea of understanding that, look, this is in the long term, this is what will happen. And this may not feel like a lot of financial returns right now, but here's the wonderful feeling that comes with doing this work,
Yeah. Very quickly, I think, thanks, just to sum it up, what is your advice to other green entrepreneurs and people leading community businesses like yourself, people who might not have the same kind of financial resources or capacities? What would be your key advice to them?
My key advice to them is something I always keep advising to myself and Kunal, is that, look, we may not have all the money right now, and we may not have all the resources right now, but we have an idea that's undeniable. And we chip away at it every day in baby steps. If you have 10 rupees in your bank account and you can't do anything but send out an email, send out that email. And just do that. If that's all you do towards your dream that day, that's already a lot. And it's taking those baby steps that makes this huge dream possible ultimately. And it's doing what you can in the moment with the resources you have available. That makes all the difference. Instead of constantly waiting for the resources to come before starting work, or waiting for the funding to come in before taking the next step, you do some jugaad. We're the nation of jugaad. Our national anthem should be jugaad, right? So in that jugaad, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs are actually functioning like this. They are making use of whatever resources they have. They have 5,000 rupees. They buy the raw materials, make the product, and sell it. That this is the only way this country can function, because this is how we are wired. And ultimately, in the face of less funding, in the face of lots of obstacles and mountains to climb to get government funding, you do what you can with what you have. Start small, think big, start small. For me, baby steps is the key,
Absolutely. Fantastic. And in fact, it's something that you quoted in the research, that slow growth is key to sustainable development.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic, and thank you so much for giving me time today. And it was just absolutely fantastic to speak to you, Malini, and just to understand your dream, and about your enterprise, the Tenacious Bee Collective. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you so much. It was a really nice conversation. You asked all the right questions.